All right, everybody, welcome back to First and 10. Josh and Joe, and we are working on week 6 predictions. The season's kind of flying by a little bit, scares me a little bit because once it's gone for till next year, and there's that big gap, and it's like, what do you do in the wintertime? So I'm just trying to enjoy every single week, but I'm like, man, we're at week 6 already. I mean, it just flown by. It seemed like it just got here. What are you thinking?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to be such a fun month, October. It's like we're really going to see who the contenders are. Not to rush through this week, but you got this month. You have Ohio State, Oregon, Illinois, Penn State, Bama, Tennessee, Georgia, Texas, Miami, Louisville. So this is going to be an exciting month of football.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one. We've got a decent slate of games. I'll say this isn't the most. Isn't the best slate of games that we have. I mean, probably the hint to that is the game day crew going to Berkeley, which we'll get into that one. Berkeley's not exactly a I wouldn't call it a football town, right? It's just that stadium's empty a lot, and I was actually surprised that they decided to go there. It was a really, really interesting move, but I get it because it's Miami's traveling across the country to get there, and Cal plays defense. The game's at night. It could be weird, Pac-12 / ACC now after dark, but going to be really, really interesting to see that one. And it's going to be interesting to see where they set up game day and how that atmosphere is going to be. If there are going to be a lot of Cal fans that show up, are there going to be, are there going to be protesters there? I mean, it's just, you could get, there's a million different things that can happen in Berkeley. It's going to be really, really interesting. Is there equipment going to get stolen before the game?
I almost feel like they planned on something wild or crazy happening because for them you have number 9 Missouri and 25 A&M playing as well, but they opted to go out to Berkeley for the Miami Berkeley or Cal game, and so that'll be fun. I think they're expecting the after dark fireworks to happen as well, so that should be a fun one.
Yeah, it should be a good one. But all right, let's go ahead and start with Oregon. At home versus Michigan State. That's a 6 p.m. That's a 6 p.m. West Coast kick. So that's a late kick for you on the East Coast, 9 p.m. And that's going to be an interesting game. Michigan State coming off that loss to Ohio State, and a game where they pretty much got dominated. It took a little bit. I mean, it was close for about a quarter and a half, right? Quarter and a half maybe, and then it was Ohio State asserted their dominance. I mean, again, Michigan State at home, underdogs, biggest game, one of the biggest games of the year for them, for their crowd. Whenever Ohio State comes to town, everybody wants to beat the Buckeyes, never can seem to. And so that kind of went as you would think, I guess. This game, I'm kind of expecting a similar result on this one. Oregon's at home. I've told you a little bit. They're Jekyll and Hyde, and that part of that is, they have their issue really is at right guard. If you look at it, they've got Harper in there and Bedford's out. I don't know if Bedford's going to be back or not. I feel like maybe they're going to probably get him some snaps this game. I'm not sure. I haven't heard the latest, but Oregon allows about 112 rushing yards per game. They're pretty good. Their run defense is pretty good. Their pass defense is actually better. It's up their ways, and then they run the ball at about 152 yards a game, which is below the standard for sure of what Dan Lanning and Will Stein want to see. And so I'm sure that is going to be a focus. And whenever they play well, they run the ball well. They really do. They struggle in games where they can't get the run game going, and it seems like when they can't get the run game going, the Boise State game was kind of one that comes to mind, and then they're allowing pressure on the quarterback. These two things seem to go hand in hand. This year with them. It hasn't always been that way. They were the least amount of sacks last year. And in the first 2 games, they'd already allowed more sacks, I think, than they did all last year. Maybe in the first, I can't remember the actual stat. But Gabriel's been fantastic. 9 touchdowns to 1 pick. That pick 6 that he threw that, probably trying to do too much there. He's got a passer rating of 122, 80% completion percentage. That's off the charts. That's up to where Bo was this time of year last year. Bo Nix was. He finished at 77 point something. Tez Johnson's been outstanding in coming out of the slot. they have lots of weapons. Evan Stewart really hasn't got going, even though he gets the ball here and there. He hasn't probably got it as much as I'm sure he will down the stretch. They have Trayshawn Holden's big receivers. They've got guys that they can spread the ball around to, and they do. I talked about Charles Brantley versus Jeremiah Smith last week. We know who won that matchup. If you could evidence by Brantley's PFF rank, he dropped from 8th in coverage to I think the 39th or something like that. You got to know that's coming. I guess that tells you a lot when you go against a good receiver, Jordan Turner. But other than those two guys, they need some help in the secondary defending the pass. Their D-line essentially, got abused last week. I mean, it is what it is. They usually stop the run pretty well, but they did not, obviously, against Chip in the Buckeye attack there they got going. Aiden Childs, I've got him at 7.78% turnover-worthy throws. That's a scary number if you're Jonathan, and that's a little bit surprising. So I've talked about how good Jonathan Smith is with quarterbacks, and if you look at DJU, that's his high watermark was last year with Oregon State. There is no doubt that he was that was obviously, I mean, the best that he's going to have in his college career was with Jonathan Smith. And I mean, you look at him this year; he's horribly regressed this year. And so that's a little bit though. So that 7.78% turnover worthy play is a little bit concerning if from a Jonathan Smith quarterback at Michigan State. Like I said, they're pretty stout against the run, 3.13 yards per carry, and that includes playing the Buckeyes. So that number is, and the Buckeyes, I say that because the Buckeyes are really good at running the football. And I think that I just think there's too many questions for Michigan State coming in. This is, a rebuilding year for Jonathan Smith. They just saw what Ohio State is, so I don't think Oregon's defense is going to be a surprise to them. I'm sure they're going to have some stuff for Oregon. I'm sure they'll have a little bit of success here and there. Oregon can be susceptible to allowing some run plays and, some mid-game passing. They play over the top pretty well. Their passing defense is pretty well. So I have them winning 40-14. Joe, what do you have on this game?
Yeah, you kind of it's a couple of things I was going to hit on as well. But I guess the last couple of times we previewed Oregon, we focused on their offense a lot, and I didn't realize, Oregon has a very, very good defense and a very good passing defense in particular. I think they're in the top 5 of the PFF's. You say what you want about PFF's grades or whatnot, but they're ranked in the top 5 in pass coverage as far as like their grades go defensively. And they're 16th in total defense. So, for as much, I don't know, back and forth as the offense sometimes seems to be, their defense has been steady. Their defense has been very good. I mean, I know that, the Boise State game, they were able to score some points, but Jinty's a very good back, as we covered that in our last show. But in Oregon's a very good team. I was just curious when I was deciding, how much Oregon was going to win this game by, how long Jonathan Smith will be able to keep it close, just because he's familiar with Oregon. And so maybe more familiar, definitely more familiar than he was with Ohio State, even though Michigan State plays him every year. He was out on the West Coast and comes in and did a very good job with them. But he's way more familiar with the Oregon team than he would be with Ohio State. So I wonder if it'll be one of those games similar to, like, I think you even said this, similar to the Ohio State game where it's close for a little bit and the better athletes will eventually wear out. But yeah, one thing Michigan State has to do, and they're a turnover machine. I mean, 13 turnovers lost already, 8 interceptions, 5 fumbles, and a lot of them happened in the red zone, like the worst possible place for it. You move the ball all the way down there, and it's so demoralizing that, you lose the football down there and give it to the other team, walk away with no points. That's a huge swing. But yeah, all in all, I think Oregon's gonna either good primer or warm up for next week, and Oregon's gonna win comfortably in this one, and I have them win at 38-13.
38-13. Okay, so we're pretty close on that one. Real close on that one. So you have them covering as well. Is that 38? Yep, you got to cover. Okay. So moving on to America's team. I'm going to call them America's team. UNLV versus Syracuse, right? That's another Friday night game. So be flipping between those. I'll also be at my son's high school game watching that. So I'll take my
got a full
iPad,
slate.
I'll have my phone, and I will be multitasking over on the sidelines. Yeah. So I've done it before. I'll do it again. That's the beautiful thing about not coaching now. I can still be on the sidelines, and I can do that. So, but I will be flipping between these games, and as we said last episode, Haj Malik Williams, 13 of 16, 182, 3 touchdowns, passer rating 153.7. Can he do this again? This follow-up performance that he's about to have? I think that he's going to do just fine, is I really do. Barry Odom hasn't playing some elite defense. Jalen Catalon, who leads the country, you mentioned him in the last show, also along with Noel Williams from Cal, 4 interceptions. So they're averaging 1 interception per game, which is crazy.
Right.
Syracuse is 112th in yards per game running the football. That is an issue. If you look at some of the worst teams in college football, all you have to do to find them all is to go down the worst rushing teams in football. If you go down there, you're going to see it's not exact, but it's pretty close to the worst teams in college football are the ones that are worst at running the football. UNLV's run defense is number 14, 83 yards per game, 2.88 yards per carry. That is stingy. They run the ball for an average of 283 yards. Syracuse's run defense, I call it mid. We saw that against Stanford, and they're giving about 139 yards per game. Now, Stanford, that's a team that can also run the football. So, you take that game and look at now what UNLV does. It'll be interesting to draw kind of that comparison. Now, Syracuse was at home this game. They're on the road this game in Las Vegas. But we saw Stanford. You and I both picked Syracuse in that game. We were both surprised at what Stanford was able to do in there, and I wonder if that's just kind of a bigger issue. The energy around that team is around UNLV and nationally and locally. I mean, they're really starting to hum, and so I think they have a lot of momentum with them. Now, that being said, Kyle McCord in the passing game versus the Rebels secondary. Now, Canelon may leads the nation in picks, but they rank 88th against the pass. And Syracuse and McCord can sling it. I mean, from a clean pocket, we know he can sling it, right? As long as the pocket's clean. And I wonder, that's what I think is going to actually come down. The game's going to get decided for me. I'm looking to see how UNLV gets pressure on him, because if they can make him uncomfortable, move him off the spot, we know Kyle McCord's probably going to make a couple mistakes. And that's probably going to be enough. But they are one-dimensional already, so I wonder if, so they just essentially are going to commit to the pass, and that's the way this game is going to go. I think McCord's going to have a really good day. I really do. Something tells me that he's going to, they're hearing a lot of noise. They're hearing UNLV. UNLV's the favorite. They're a 6.5-point favorite in this game. So I don't think Syracuse has all that pressure on them. They're going down, and I think they're going to be able to do what they need to do. But I do have the Rebels winning the game, but I've got Syracuse covering 30. But the Rebels win 35-31.
Yeah, you weren't kidding about them being UNLV and America's team. I knew nothing about them before the season began, and now I love this team. This team's very good because they play. I love teams that run the ball, and you covered that, but they also play. They're great on defense too, and especially rush defense. And if you can control the line of scrimmage, I hate to sound like a broken record on this, but man, for a team that maybe is a little deficient in some of the areas with talent when it comes to some player for player, that's a great way to cover up those blemishes. And UNLV has been through, and maybe even better now with Haj Malik Williams. It's incredible how they kind of lucked out in that aspect. But yeah, Syracuse, they're just so one dimensional. I mean, Kyle McCord, to his credit, he's leading the country in passing yards, but you got to be able to run the ball. I know that. I like you said, I know he's going to make his plays and he's going to get his yards more likely. But when you're kind of that predictable on offense, and the team can, drop 7 or 8 back into coverage and not have to and still be able to stop your rush or run. That's such an advantage for UNLV, and it's a home game for UNLV. So I think that'll help them out quite quite a bit. But yeah, but they're 14th ranked rushing. It's kind of funny because, like you mentioned, even though Catalan, they got all those interceptions, I thought their pass defense would be a little bit, rated higher, I suppose. But they also play good special teams. They blocked 2 kicks this year, and so that's something else that they need to, Syracuse, make sure that they're looking out for in special teams. And Kyle McCord, for all the accolades, he's got with the yards and throwing the ball, he's also thrown 5 interceptions, and they've only played 4 games, so he needs him. For Syracuse, he's going to take care of the ball a little bit better, make better decisions. But yeah, I like UNLV in this game. I actually have them covering, and I have it UNLV 34, Syracuse 24.
Okay, I think that was the very first score that I picked, and somehow I talked myself into Kyle McCord having a good day and being loose. So
the more you studied it,
yeah. The more you look at it, sometimes you change these. I'm going back and forth, watching McCord. Like he even in that Stanford game, he threw some really just made some elite throws, but then he makes some head scratching throws too. That's what I don't get that about him exactly. And but it is what it is. It's all situational. Different quarterbacks, react differently. But I think he definitely, as far as the throws he can make all the throws, it seems like. And so I'll be interested to see, because this is the first, I think, real test that that UNLV is going to have. I mean, Kansas was good, but Kansas was running the football. This is the first real test these guys are going to have from somebody that can sling it. And so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Missouri at Texas A&M. Okay, who's going to be the starter? That's one of the big questions, right? Is it Wegman or is it Reed? There's half of the people, from my understanding, they think it should be Reed regardless of Wegman comes back. But Reed has been he's 4-0 as a starter right now. I mean he looks the part. He can run the football. He adds that whole electric dynamic for them. But there definitely have been some concerns around him, and those are, if you look at the success rate, their points per drive, and their third down efficiency, it was better with Wegman in. Now, the sample size is not, it's not great right now. But I think with Missouri, you've got Brady Cook, you've got Luther Burden, who we think is really good. And I mean, you were the one that told me about him last year, and I started watching him. I'm like, oh yeah, he's actually really good. And they're road dogs, and I bet you they are seething at the mouth from the disrespect of that. Now, Mike Elko, he's run the football. He wants to run the football, control line of scrimmage. They have a really good offensive line, one of PFF's higher ranked offensive lines. The Missouri defense they'll be running into is that Corey Batoon. He likes to run that 4-2-5 base, and they have that, and he'll switch to a 3-3-5 depending on what they're seeing. That 4-2, what allows him to do a little split field coverage, right? And he can go 1 or 2 high pretty much with ease. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how they defend this A&M run game. So that's going to be the chess match that I'm going to be really looking forward to. Kristen Williams in the middle. He is a dog. He is a run stopper. That is a guy that can wreak havoc in the middle for sure. Let's see there. Missouri's run D ranks number 19. And that's yards per carry at 2.84, and in yards per game they allow less than 100, about 92 yards a game. A&M, like I said, they run the ball at about 5.46 yards per carry. That's a pretty good clip, and that's behind Le'Veon Moss, that talented offensive line. So, where does that leave us? Texas A&M, they rank 116th throwing the ball. I'm like, oh boy. And Missouri's pass defense ranks 5th. So if I look at that, I'm like, okay. Now, there's some efficiency behind that. They don't throw the ball as much, right? They don't throw the ball as much. And so, and they throw it, fairly efficiently. But I think defense travels and experience travels. And I think Missouri is an experienced team. They had a lot of guys coming back this year. And that's the type of team that you want to take on the road with you in a tough environment. And so I really think that I think Mizzou's going to go down, and I think they're going to get it done. I've got the Tigers winning outright 28-24.
It's exactly my score, but I'll get to how I got there here in a second. I'll get there how I got there.
That's why I get to go first.
Missouri hasn't played the toughest schedules. I mean, but they've been in a couple battles. That game against Boston College was close. For somehow they went to double overtime with Vanderbilt, but they're also coming off a bye week, so I'm sure that they've been laid into, and they've been, this is right now. This is the most important game on their schedule. Not to be too cliche, but I'm sure. I forget how you pronounce his name, Dierkowitz, Missouri's coach. He's a good coach. He took Ohio State to task in the bowl game last year. But they're they have that superstar Luther Burden at wide receiver. He's so good, and they're obviously the advantage at quarterback. And Texas A&M, they just they just haven't been very good on offense. They played a little bit of a tougher schedule. They had Notre Dame and they played Arkansas. Not that Florida was that great, but they played tougher teams than compared to some of the Murray States and the cupcakes that Missouri has played. So where they got to pad their stats probably some, but Missouri is, they've been very balanced on offense. And I guess watching Missouri last year, I watched how they threw the ball all over the field. And this year they've been able to run the ball maybe better than they've been able to throw the ball so far, even though that option's always going to be there for them with Luke Burden at wide receiver. I think that coming off the bye week, and I just think that they have better talent at some of the better talent at some of the better or most important positions as far as like running back, wide receiver, quarterback on offense. And I think that's what will make the difference. I still think it's going to be a close game. I don't think it's, by no means is this going to be a walk in the park for Missouri. But as you already said, I got Missouri 28-24.
Yep. All right. We agree. So you have them there. All right. So you're familiar with this team. The Ohio State Buckeyes will host Iowa, and they are 19.5-point favorites. The Buckeyes are playing an elite defense just like theirs. So this is an elite. Iowa's always going to play elite defense. That's what they do. Problem with Iowa's always been the offense. Maybe a little better this year. I'm not sure. Maybe improved some. They want to run the football, and that when you're playing against an Ohio State team that is just good everywhere, the best thing you can do is just limit possessions. And running the football it's one of the ways that you do it. And hence Michigan right now, right? That's why Michigan is their identity is run the football, play good defense, and that is always a strategy that is going to keep you in a lot of football games, and you're going to win a lot of football games playing that strategy, which Iowa does. The problem is they're coming up against a defense that is every bit as good as theirs, if not better. The athletes are better, and they don't throw the football really well, and so whenever you see that, it just always, to me, this is one of those games that's always kind of close early. It's going to be dependent upon how locked in Ohio State is. Are there some wacky turnovers or something that happen on special teams that, kind of flip the game and it makes it close or something? I don't see any world in which Iowa comes in and upsets the Buckeyes unless the Buckeyes are just straight looking forward to their trip to Eugene. That is the only way I see this game having any other result than the Buckeyes covering. And so, and I've done this before where I've not seen it, and all of a sudden there's an upset, and I'm like, holy, whoa, how did I miss that? This Buckeyes team is different. I think they're locked in week after week. They have not only Ryan Day, who's a great coach and who has only lost to Michigan, I believe, right, since he's in conference. Has he lost anybody besides Michigan? Only Michigan, right? Yeah, that's it. He's never lost to them. Now you have Chip Kelly, who is the ultimate in saying, we're going to focus on this faceless opponent. That is his mantra. Today matters. Forget tomorrow. You're only playing against yourself. The only thing you can control is what's in front of you. We're not even talking about Oregon. I guarantee you that's his approach to this, is we're focused on this really good Iowa defense and how we're going to attack them. I think the Buckeyes are way too much in this game, and I have them covering, and I have them covering by a lot, 38-6.
Yeah, I'll be real interested to watch how the offense performs against the best defense that they faced up to this point in the season. And Iowa always gives Ohio State a tough game in Columbus. They haven't won in Columbus since 1991, but it's always a battle. And Iowa's coming off a bye week as well, so obviously this is their Super Bowl, and so they're gonna pull out all the stops for Ohio State in this one. The problem is Cade McNamara is not very good, and but they have the second best, the second leading rusher in the country, Caleb Johnson at running back. He's right behind Ginty as far as like yards, and I think he might be third or fourth in yards or yards per rush at 8.3. So they have a very good rushing attack, like you mentioned, but Ohio State, they're I think I'm hoping they'll work on the running game, or not that I don't say needs work. That might be a little bit hyperbolic, but they threw the ball 40 times last week against Michigan State. I thought they might try to run the ball a little bit more. Trey Henderson, I think he got dinged, or he looked like he was okay because I think he came back after that, but he kind of took himself out of the game. James Peoples, the third string running back, ended up having got more carries than he did actually, but maybe it was just a precautionary move or something like that. And the Chip Kelly effect, I bring it up again, is one thing I didn't think about that maybe is another advantage that's never up to this point in college football is now Will Howard gets to have Chip Kelly in his ear, and then they got the iPads on the sidelines now, so it's like a whole nother dimension that Chip could see what he sees from the box and get it down to Will, and then they can review it on. I think it's almost like probably Chip's playing a video game with this offense at this point because they're just loaded everywhere. Iowa has that 18th ranked total defense, and they're fourth in rushing defense. So that's a game within the game that I can't wait to watch and see how Ohio State's rushing offense performs against this stellar, supreme rushing defense, only holding opponents to 62 yards a game. And that for the last couple of years, that's always been a big knock for Ohio State fans, is we just haven't been able to run the ball as well as we in years past. One thing Chip has also added that, he has to be the difference maker in this, as far as I'm concerned, is the perimeter blocking. These wide receivers block now. Emeka's blocking, Carnell Tate's blocking, even the freshman Jeremiah Smith they're blocking, and you've seen evidence of that they've had a lot more runs for over 20 yards, more than they had last year. Iowa last year on offense, they only scored over 30 points one time, and Kirk Ferentz had the unpleasant task of firing his son Brian because Brian was the offensive coordinator, and so I'm sure that I'd hate to do that. I don't know if I could do that to Cameron, but we need to score over 30 more than once. They've done it 3 times so far, so the offense has improved somewhat. But at the end of the day, Ohio State's going to win this one and pull away. It'll probably be close. This coming off a bye week, it seems like Ohio State hasn't really gotten off to a fast start yet this year. The Akron game, they were kind of, it took them a little bit. First game of the year, we gave them a little bit of a pass for that. Western Michigan, they came out the gate firing on all cylinders. That was really well. But in last week against and Marshall, those 2 games, seemed like they, I don't know, kind of a slow start. But you get into these conference games and they kind of end up this way. They're not always going to be 54-3 or 45-10 or something like that. These teams know each other extremely well. So you get into these conference games like this. So, always closer than probably the fans want it to be. But I see Ohio State winning this one 34-13.
34-13. All right. Gotcha. So is that covered? 34. Yeah, you've got them covering.
Yeah.
Yep. Got it.
Just barely. Because I think last time I saw the line was 20.5, so I got them by 21.
All right. So moving on to Miami. They're 10.5 point road favorites going to Berkeley. I've seen this game it's been called Coke versus Woke.
Yeah, I did see somebody said that. That's great.
The internet always wins, by the way.
Yeah, every time.
We know that. So Miami obviously coming off that very, very scary down to the last play game against Virginia Tech. Cal is a little bit in that same mold of a Virginia Tech team. Really good defensively. They really thrive on takeaways and disruption. That's a Justin Wilcox defensive-minded football team is what Cal, has always been. They really have been. Justin's he's as hard a worker as you find, just in an actual human. He's just everything he's ever done. He was a grinder as a player. He's a grinder as a coach. Miami comes in boasting the nation's second best scoring offense, 49.4 points per game. Cal's defense, 12.8 points per game. So this is something's got to give. This is one of those something's got to give games. Home field advantage. So we talk a little bit. Berkeley's just a hard one. That is a that's a hard one to say if there's an advantage or not. Kind of like where Miami comes from. Like that stadium's not always packed, right? Like there's some similarities that you could draw between these two programs as far as fan attendance. Kind of
Right.
they've been lackluster really for years, and not a lot of excitement around the football team. Even though the U is definitely more excitement than the Golden Bears have, and they've gotten more financial support as of recently, but still kind of they've been these programs have struggled for the greater part of the decade, and Cal for maybe even a little longer. Cal scores 31 points a game at home. So they're at 31 points a game at home, and they're way worse on the road, right? But 30 they scored. Yeah, they put up 9 at Florida State, right? In a game that they really probably should have won. And so Cal is one of those teams that I'm not really sure that what you're going to get on offense, but we know what you're going to get on defense. I had told you before they have the interception leader Noel. He's got 4. What was his name? Noel Williams. He's got 4 interceptions. Miami though, 4th in the nation in expected points added. So that EPA, they get positive yards and they score touchdowns. That's really they score in scoring opportunities. They're explosive. They have their ninth in success rate, and up front, Miami's offensive line is the highest graded in the country right now, according to PFF. And so that's going to be a crucial battle. I think them and the Cal's defensive front. And I assume that Cal is going to be multiple like they usually are up front. Turnover margin, here's one that really favors Cal. They have 11 turnovers forced this season, and they've only given it up 3 times. So they can obviously wreak havoc, and Wilcox defenses always seem to do that. Now, here's another stat, though, that could kind of run against Cal. I would say they're 70th in the nation on third down conversions allowed. So for a defense that only gives up 12 points a game, the offenses are really they're kind of playing with fire. That almost sounds like your bend but don't break. That reeks of bend but don't break, right? When you're giving up that many third down conversions, and so it will be interesting. Be really interesting to watch that. It's going to be interesting to see how Miami bounces back from that Virginia Tech. Sometimes that takes a lot out of a team. Sometimes that really energizes a team, and then they got to turn around. They got to travel all the way across the country. So I'm going to be really interested to see how that goes. Cal's offense is inept. 112th. They're 112th in EPA, so it's a totally opposite of what you're looking at with Miami, and Miami can play some defense. So I think at the end of the day, it's going to be Miami's too much for Cal, even though Cal is going to be at home. They're going to have everything to play for. This is going to be their quote-unquote Super Bowl, right? Bringing in, the eighth-ranked Hurricanes and all of the storylines that go behind it. But I do think it's going to be a close game. I think there is going to be that game kicks off, like we said, 8:00 Pacific time. That's 11:00. Back in Miami. That's a tough time to play, especially in the second half. So I expect some weirdness to happen, some Pac-12 after dark, ACC after dark to happen, but I do think the Canes are going to walk away winning. But I think Cal covers. I think the Canes win 31-27.
Yeah, you talk to a lot of college football players. They don't even like they don't like the 8 p.m. games. Fans love it. We love it. The anticipation, the build up for it. But I think a lot of the football players, they just can't wait they want to get out there. They want to play. They hate waiting around all day for all the theatrics and all the build up for the game like that. They just want to get out there. So that'll be interesting. Just to, I don't know. I guess after the game's over to hear how Miami reacts to having to wait that long to play. That's kind of a fun thing to keep an eye on. And, for all the accolades that this Miami offense is earned, and rightfully so, their defense is very good, 15th in total defense. But yeah, Cal, they're just not very good on offense right now. 84th in rushing, 71st in passing. So that's tough to go up when you're going against a 15th ranked defense at the moment. And Cam Ward, having said all that about their offense, like you had mentioned, their defense leads the country in interceptions, so that'll be interesting to see if Cam can navigate the defense without turning the ball over. He had some issues with that with Virginia Tech. And so see if he got right on in that aspect of the throw game. Yeah, but I mean, Cal's got a good defense, so it'll be fun to watch to see if they're able to get some pressure on that offensive line, get Cam rattled a little bit, and see if that ACC after dark now. Not the work has any magic in store for them during this game. I got Miami winning. 38-21. I think that I think they'll probably learn from that Virginia Tech game. Cristobal get in there and get that defense together, so there's not so many breakaway runs from the opposing team. And I think Miami will end up winning this one, maybe without a little bit of fun with the after dark magic stuff that happens over there.
Yeah, I got you. What was the final again? What'd you get?
38-21. Miami 38.
38-21. Okay, so you think they get rolling? Okay.
Yeah.
Ole Miss. Let's talk Ole Miss. Ole Miss at South Carolina. Ole Miss, another team coming off. Maybe this is obviously a loss. They're coming off of Miami learned in a win. Ole Miss is going to have to. They're probably seething to get back on the field after what happened to them in Oxford last weekend. Obviously, their offense can still hum. We saw that. We did see it get shut down though for most of the game. I mean, they still had some explosion plays, which is, tells you how good their offense, is and can be. Kentucky played really good defense in that game. Like I said, they're in hip pocket all game of those receivers and just all over them. But South Carolina is a team that went in and beat Kentucky 31-6 earlier this season. And so you go, what the heck is happening here? This is where you got to be a little bit careful of the transitive property of college football. Because it would suggest that South Carolina should beat Ole Miss by quite a few points. So if you're believing that transitive property, they'd be like 28 point favorites, which is just not going to be the case in reality. Let's see. Ole Miss averages 47.4 points a game, 7th nationally. South Carolina, they put up 34.3, which was a little bit surprising to me. And they do a lot of that, though. They do it in a much different fashion on the ground. This game really comes down to a couple things for me. You look at Raheem Sanders, you look at Lenora Sellers, who can run. He can run the football, but is he a thrower? This is kind of where I'm at there. The turnover battle, South Carolina's a little sloppy with the ball. They're -1. Ole Miss is +5 in turnover margin, so advantage Ole Miss there. Third down efficiency. Ole Miss 47.17% of their third downs. That's 32nd nationally. And that is with going 1 for 10 in the last game. So they were through the roof all the way up until that Kentucky game. And then their defense, though. So the Ole Miss defense, they only give up 22.5% conversion rate on third down. So I think that defense from Ole Miss is going to get after South Carolina is the way I see this game going. There's obviously, I think Shane Beamer's a really good coach, tough coach. But the Lane train, I think, is going to get back on track this weekend. And let's see, where was Lane train was going to get back on track. I actually don't think I put my score prediction in here. So what I see happening, though, I can tell you right now, is I've got Ole Miss covering at South Carolina, and I think they're going to do that in a 38-24 win.
South Carolina, another team, coming off a bye week, and they had that tough loss to LSU, and that's when I think Sellers actually hurt his ankle in that game, and I was skimming through before the show, and I saw that Shane Beamer, he said he was back at practice, and so, but those ankle injuries, man, you never know. They can linger. He could get tackled the wrong way, and that could be it for the game for him. Hopefully not, especially with the way my prediction is going to go. But South Carolina, every time I see their defensive line, every time I watch them, that LSU game, they get after the quarterback as well. Ole Miss, don't get me wrong, I think their defensive line is rated, higher than South Carolina's on PFF or whatnot, but South Carolina, they're sixth in the country in sacks with 13 or 14 actually, but man, they have a freshman phenom at defensive end and Dylan Stewart. This kid is a stud. the bend that he can get around the tackle is amazing. The way he could just bend his body. I don't know. I guess to be 18 again, I can't bend at all now. It seems like, but that kid can bend and get after the quarterback and use his leverage. It's pretty amazing to watch. And I think South Carolina, they're somewhat battle tested with that being in that UK game, and then obviously that LSU tough loss to LSU. But I don't know. I with Lane in UK, and that game just showed me that if you can get after Jackson Dart and you can kind of bring up the same recipe that UK used, if you can maybe get them down to play your type of game, I guess, and slow down that fast paced Lane Kiffin offense, that you have a very good chance of keeping up and beating Ole Miss. So in this one, I got South Carolina actually winning 31-28.
Ooh. This is the furthest we've been off of each other all season. All right. 31-28. You got the Gamecocks winning. Okay. I like it. All right. Last one. Michigan, Washington. So this is a good old ground and pound. We know that's going to happen there, right? And the Huskies, I'm not really quite sure what they are. I know what Michigan is. We know Michigan is run the football and play defense. That's what we know. Not so sure about Washington. Like they are. I struggle a little bit with. I think Jonah Coleman's a really good running back. I really do. I think he's really good. I would say, look at this as kind of, is this a revenge game? But so many of those players are not on the roster anymore because that Husky roster when DeBoer left just got depleted. And then, you had some guys from Arizona like Jonah Coleman, right, that came up from Arizona that followed Jed Fish. You had some players that did that. And so this Husky team's really interesting. They, competed well in Rutgers. They just made a couple mistakes, I think, that really cost them. They lost to Washington State, which, suggests maybe part of the floor for them. I'm not really sure what to think about this Husky team because they play pretty good defense. And they do some things well. Their run defense ranks 51st, 122 yards a game, and but Michigan's offense, they run the ball at 34th, 195 yards per game, right? So you're wondering if something's going to be in the mid there, or are the Huskies going to really shut down that run game because they can dedicate it to the run game? The Huskies offense ranks 61st, and they're 173 yards per game. And Michigan, though, is 6th, allowing 69 yards per game when it comes to is that right? 69 yards per game when it comes to rushing the football, right? So something's going to give here. I think Washington, I feel like they are going to be at home. I think turnovers might decide this game. Michigan's pass defense is 103rd. They give up 249 yards a game in the air. So they're really good against the run. They're really not very good against the pass. And UW ranks 24th in passing. They throw it for almost 300 yards a game. And so I think that your difference is going to be through the air. I think that Michigan, I said they were on borrowed time. And I think that borrowed time is coming due on the road, the West Coast, traveling across the country. And I think Husky Stadium's it's a really tough place to play. So I'm going to give the Huskies this one. I'm going to take the Huskies 24-21.
Yeah, you're right. Something's going to give this game. And something's going to give is holding calls, Michigan. Holding calls. They ran the ball 46 times against USC and not a single holding call. They ran the ball 43 times against Minnesota. One holding call. How do you run the ball 89 times and you only have one holding call? That's impossible. I don't believe it for a second. This is their first game on the road. Credit to Michigan. No, they do what they have to do with what they have, and they've been winning. That's all you can ask. I just think that was hilarious when I started looking that up, and it was it's kind of funny. But unfortunately, they still have the 115th ranked total offense, offense in the country, and like you just mentioned, it's going to catch up to you sooner or later. And Washington has a pretty good defense. Unfortunately, the best part of their defense is their pass defense, which isn't really going to help them out against Michigan because Michigan doesn't really throw the ball that well anyway. So
I looked at that and I was like, that's a non-factor in.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're good at something, but they're bad at it anyway, so they're not going to do it. So it doesn't help you out, right? It's like, damn it. But Yeah, one thing about Washington though, it's like, you mentioned that Rutgers game, and if you looked at the numbers, Washington totally outplayed Rutgers. They had 521 yards. Rutgers only had 299. But man, the great equalizer is like they missed three field goals, special teams, and penalties. They're third in the country for penalties against them, or I don't know how I think probably phrase that awkwardly, but yeah, they average 8 penalties a game against themselves. So it's like they shoot themselves in the foot a lot, and they got to clean that up, or maybe they'd be undefeated. They definitely would have beat Rutgers, and they still had a chance to win it at the end of that, and missed the field goal. But yeah, I think this Michigan's going to be on the road for the first time, and yeah, I know the media's hyping it up to be the revenge game, or on paper it's the national title game all over again. But yeah, both coaches are gone. Quarterbacks are gone. It's not the same team. Although I mean, it's cool to hype it up and for the media or whatnot to do that. But yeah, I don't think that's as much of a factor in this one as what they're playing it out to be. But yeah, I think this week Michigan's luck runs out, and I'm not saying that I just think that I think time has caught up with them, and it's just can't keep winning this way unless they can prove me wrong. But I have Washington winning 27-20.
27-20. Gotcha. Okay. So we both have Washington covering on this one. Expect it to be a close game. I'll be shocked. I'll be shocked, and I won't be shocked if all of a sudden Orji airs the ball out, because that's kind of how it goes when I'm predicting Michigan. It's like I'm always wrong about them. Yeah. So it's like
I've predicted Michigan's demise for 3 years, and they just keep proving me wrong.
I mean, it would. I mean, my hat will go off to them. If they win this game, my hat will go off to them, because I just don't. I mean, I don't see how Washington's defense isn't going to play. Heavy in the box, heavy run game, and say, beat us with your arm, Orji. Like figure it out, beat us. Like, so if they can, what happens though when you do that? You're a little susceptible to explosion runs, which Michigan loves, right? They like to put a hat on a hat. We're better than you, type of deal. You want to bring it in the box. We're happy to do that. But I just think that the borrowed time, the bill comes due this week. I really do. I kind of feel that. And Husky Stadium is not an easy place to play. It is that place is loud. That place is. I mean, those fans, they really get after it. And so I think I think Michigan's going to.
If the Huskies can take care of the ball on offense, they haven't thrown an interception this year. Just don't throw it towards Will Johnson. Just don't throw it his direction at all. Every time somebody throws his way, even like USC did, he jumps the hitch route and takes it for a pick six. It's like, just don't throw his way at all. You have plenty of other receivers you could use.
No, he's really good. And the Michigan secondary is good. I was a little surprised to see their rank, but that's what you get when you're run defense. When teams can't run the ball against you, where they're stuck throwing. I mean, we saw that with Minnesota. Right. They just, you got to start throwing the football at some point, right? And then, and again, it's just this is going to be something's got to give game. Definitely. But so that was it. So we got a pretty good slate of games. Covering a lot of these top 25 teams, and there's going to be some great matchups next week. But we've got an interesting slate this week. This is a lot of litmus tests. Like, you have a lot of the transitive property, figuring out, Michigan State, one of those. I know you had mentioned that before. You're like, okay, this is the last comparison we get to see right before they travel and play Oregon next week. Lots of great games coming up, but I'm really kind of excited to see UNLV play Syracuse. Out of all the games, it's kind of weird to say, but that game I'm curious to watch that game a lot. That's the one that I'm kind of, because that group of 5 is really interesting right now, because you've got UNLV that looks the part. You've got Boise State that's right there. They look the part. I mean, they look really good, right? They took Oregon to the brink. And so do you really knock them for that loss, that one loss to Oregon? Do you knock them for that? Not really.
I don't see how you could, right?
Yeah, and then you unless you think UNLV would beat Oregon, right? Do you think they'd have a better performance against Oregon? Probably not.
Right.
But
probably not.
So I look at that, and it's really kind of cool watching the group of 5 teams, jockeying for position, and then they've got that big game coming in a couple weeks. So, but college football, man, this is why we love it. Every week there's something interesting to talk about, interesting matchups, and we'll see. You beat me last week, by the way. So you were, I think we I think we did. Did we do 12 games last week? That was a lot.
I think we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
that was a lot.
Yeah, you were 6-6, and I was 5-7, and I think the week before you got me too. So I think you were, what was it, 3? You were 3-3, and I was 2-4. I think the week before.
The week before.
So, yeah. So you're 2 games up on our for us.
Yeah, well, this week we started off kind of close. We had the one score that was together, but yeah, we both went separate ways after that. So this one will be fun to do on Sunday or Monday, whatever we do.
Yeah. Well, awesome, Joe. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Yeah, man,
and yeah, really appreciate it. So for everybody out there, thanks for joining us as well. Appreciate your support. Let us know how we did in the comment section. And for Sports Idol Nation, I'm Josh Rodriguez. Sports is in our DNA. We hope it's in yours too.